monophonic versus polyphonic. We're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna explain a little bit when you might want to use mono versus poly and vice versa. When you're sampling music, this option right here is gonna be very useful. So I'm gonna jump right into it and I'm gonna explain a little further why you would want to use and when you would want to use one versus the other. So let's jump right in. All right, so we're right here in the MPC ONE and I'm gonna show you guys two scenarios that you might wanna use one versus the other. Right now, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna sample, and when I'm gonna sample, this is gonna be an actual melodic sample. This has nothing to do with drums. In this case, let's go ahead and sample this record that I have right in front of me, and let's demonstrate these two different options right now. So once we slice up our notes on the MPC ONE, if you guys go to program edit and you created your program already, you'll notice that right here you got an option where it says poly, and this polyphony is either going to be mono or poly or polyphonic. If it's in polyphonic, they're going to overlap each other, as you guys can hear right here, which is going to create a big mess, and most of the time we do not want that when we're sampling a melodic sample. Most of the time we're just going to want it on mono, so when we play these notes, they're going to cut each other off like this, which is awesome. Trust me, coming from the 2000 XL, it does not have this option, and you got to just go a different route with that machine. But right here, you get the luxury to choose poly or mono for your entire program. So that's awesome to have. And like I mentioned, when it comes down to samples, we most of the time are gonna want them in monophonic. All right, cool. So as you guys can hear, there's notes being played one right after the other, and they're cutting each other off. There's no overlapping, which is awesome. We don't want them to be overlapping. Now, when are we gonna want to use polyphonic? So there is times where we wanna use polyphonic in our programs. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna sample a drum break, and I'm gonna go ahead, go to my sampler. I'm gonna do it on slice mode, and I'm gonna just cut these up in quarter notes. Drums, and hit create, go to our main menu. Now we'll go to track 2 and go to the drums we just created. All right, so once I did those chops, here's a quick, simple loop that I created right here. All right, cool. So what I do a lot, and I talk about this in my channel a lot, that I like to sample live drums. And when I sample live drums, I chop them up and I kind of create my own grooves with these live drums. But most of the time, these live drums do not have the low end that I'm looking for. So what I do is I will layer my kicks with an actual kick drum that has some punch to it, just so I can give a little more low end or more punch to these live drums. So when I want to layer drums on top of each other, now I do want this program to be in polyphonic, not monophonic, or else if I try to layer a kick on top of another kick, it's gonna cut each other off, which I do not want that. So in this case, I'm gonna go to program edit, and on program edit, like I mentioned in the beginning, when you create your slices or when you start chopping up your samples, it's gonna make them, it's gonna create the program into monophonic, which in this case, we want them to overlap each other, so we're gonna make this into polyphonic. Go back to main, and I'm gonna just go to browser, and I'm gonna go to my SD card and look for a kick. So I'm gonna grab this kick, and I'm gonna put it on this empty pad, hit load. Once it's loaded on that empty pad on that program, I'm gonna layer that on top of this. But as you guys can tell, since now I'm on polyphonic, when I play a note, that's the kick from my sample, which sounds very weak. I want to layer that on top with this kick. But as you guys can tell, they're playing on top of each other and they're overlapping each other. So it's playing multiple notes at the same time, which that's why we set it to polyphonic. So let's go ahead and just overdub that. As you guys can see, I'm gonna lower down that kick that I overdubbed with, and let's hear that. So those are the two scenarios that I run into when I'm sampling, that I'm gonna wanna flip between those two options. Polyphonic is gonna play multiple notes at the same time, and monophonic is only gonna play one at a time, and it's pretty much gonna cut each other off, which is good when we're doing sample chops. Polyphonic is good when we're doing drums. Now, I'm using drums and sample chops, like a melodic chops, as an example because those are the two situations that I run into the most, but I'm sure there's other situations that you guys are probably gonna wanna flip between these two options when you're creating music. Now, on the topic of sampling, make sure you guys check out some of my other videos where I go a little more in depth with sampling on the MPC ONE. And also, if you guys got some value out of this video, do not forget to give it a thumbs up. I'll catch you guys on our next video. Peace.